Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. Okay, first step in the build, if you're using the carbon chassis, which I am, if you're running on asphalt, this is what you should have chosen. If you didn't, you might want to order one and do a swap. Everything else will be the same, so it doesn't matter. You don't need to like return the whole kit. Just order yourself chassis and save whatever chassis you did buy for running on carpet at some point or whatever. But if you are going to run on asphalt, this is definitely what you should have. They recommend that you seal the edge with CA. Use a very thin CA. These two holes at this end and these two holes three holes at this end. That's all they ask you to do as far as carbon prep. So, step one involves bag 1.1 and 1.2. This is our front spool. We do not have a front diff, and this is our rear differential. Now, you'll notice in the directions, anything that has a little thumbs up icon is a potential option. Some options may be included in the kit, so don't just run through the directions, look up every item that looks like an option and order it, because some of them may already be in the kit. For example, these graphite gear, the Diff bevel and satellite gears, are supposed to be 30% lighter than the steel ones. It looks like our kit already comes with them, unless this is another type of plastic and not the graphite composite they're referring to. I looked up the parts online, and this is exactly how they look on a little parts tree like that. So I believe that that option has been included in this kit, because they're certainly not the steel gears that they refer to in the information about these parts, that they're, 40% lighter or whatever it was, I don't remember. But a substantial weight savings. Now, these are not the spring steel outdrives. They're not the lightened ones. They are incredibly light. I think these are aluminum. I think they're just anodized aluminum. So I would imagine that these are at least as light as the spring steel outdrives that are an option. That's this one right here. There are two optional front setups. One is aluminum solid and one is lightened steel. Now, I don't see any reason to go with steel for the class that I'm running. 21.5 turn motors, not an incredibly high torque motor. It's not like we're running a mod class here. I don't think there's any issue of these failing, especially when they run a puck. For those of you who don't know what a puck is, let me find a picture to show you. Just a moment. It's basically a little plastic horseshoe shaped piece that goes over the dog bone that goes into the outdrive, and it reduces friction, and it basically smooths out the operation of the outdrive. Okay, now here's a picture of it right here. Okay, and for easy installation, plastic crimping pliers. They also give us drive shaft replacement caps in orange. These are going to be aluminum, anodized aluminum. All of their orange parts are anodized aluminum. I don't see any reason to go with that. The whole point is to make this light and have it function more smoothly. So I would think the plastic ones would be fine. And if something is going to break, long before this aluminum piece could ever be deformed or break, that puck is going to disintegrate. So again, I'm not going to run out and buy those option parts. some things you might, well, I'll deal with which options you might want to consider later. I may even just do a full video on that. There are a few things that I am adding. Mainly they're spares, as in extra springs and extra sway bars. Excuse me. But those are for tuning. I'm basically swapping one item for another, just at a different thickness or a different spring rate. The only real modification or option part that I'm using is the top chassis brace. The stock one is 2 millimeters. The one I have ordered is 1.6. That's the only two that they offer, is the stock one and the 1.6. The 1.6 is to soften up the car, and again, that's for asphalt. I believe I've touched on this in the unboxing video. So let me go ahead and get these gears off of the trees, get my parts laid out, and get ready to start assembling this diff, and I'll go through that process. Okay, one of the nice things about this kit is that Xray in general is they have fantastic documentation. They, of course, like most car manufacturers, they provide a blank setup sheet, and they also have an editable one in case you want to do your edits electronically instead of pen and paper. I usually just do pen and paper. I don't have to rely on, having the battery not running out on me or something like that. I just find it easier to deal with at the track, and it's one less piece of electronics to worry about damaging or losing. They also provide two sheets from which to use to build your car. They are kind of generic setups. Usually you get one setup with a car. They provide an asphalt sheet, and they provide one for carpet. Now, having looked over them a bit, they're pretty similar. Shocks are the same, diff fluids are all the same. Part of that may be with the fact, for example, like with the diff fluid, they only give us one diff fluid to work with, so we've kind of got to go with that. Take this build with a grain of salt, and if you feel the desire to change some of the settings, for example, there are a lot of settings in the chassis that provide for flexibility, and there's some excellent videos by Xray, by their pro drivers, specifically on this car and on the latest model. One of them, for example, is for asphalt and even medium traction carpet. They recommend removing the two screws on either side of the spur gear. Those are the two of the bolts that hold the motor mount in place. That creates a lot of flexibility in the midsection of the chassis, and helps it, it really makes the car a lot easier to drive, especially in low traction conditions. The rear T-brace can be left off altogether. It can be screwed in with all 5 screws. It can be screwed in with just the 3 linear screws. There's a variety of things you can do. One of their options is to take out the rear screw and replace it with a grub screw. In other words, you're talking about a screw with no head. Do I have one handy to show you? You guys should know what a grub screw is. In any event, I'll cover that again when I get there, because I'm going to use this setting. So instead of having a screw that is clamping the T portion of this T-brace to the chassis, the upper portion of it is free, but it can't move around because the grub screw is in place. So it allows it to flex freely without that clamping, but the grub screw provides like a retainer to keep the T-plate from moving sideways. I think I'm going to try that, because they also said that a lot of the, drivers run that particular setting in almost all conditions. They find that it works really well. So there's a whole bunch of ways that you can make this more flexible. Right here, the top deck flex point. This is a place where a screw can be used to anchor the top deck, because the top deck is anchored at either end of the car at the two diffs. It can be anchored here or not. If not, it allows it to kind of flex and bow as needed to let the car have more moving around. Now you can have no connection at all. You can have a bearing, which I'm not sure how exactly that looks. I haven't seen it. And then they have a bushing. Now, in this carpet versus asphalt, both sheets say bushing. And from what I've read on their website and from their videos, you would at least run bearing for asphalt, if not no connection at all. So, I don't know if if a mistake was made. Someone may have just uploaded the same file twice. I really haven't seen much in the way of differences at all. The sway bars are the same. There are differences in the roll center settings. That's the first thing I've seen that's any different. So, like I said, I'm going to follow this sheet, the asphalt sheet, except in areas where I'm trying to gain more flexibility, in which case I will go off on my own. So I've already got blank sheets over here that I'll be writing one up and just using this as a guide for my setup, and I'll be doing a setup sheet as I do this assembly and filling in what I use. So I'll take from here what I want and then go on from, record any changes there. Sorry if I'm getting a little over detailed about that in my explanation. Okay, so I've got everything laid out here. Now you're going to need of accurate scale. You could just use their visual guide for how much fluid to use, but their precise method to ensure, and I understand why they're doing this, they want to help you. If you're trying to race and you want to be able to make changes, or if you want to recreate the exact same setting, just having the same weight of fluid isn't enough. You've got to have the same volume of fluid. And the only way to get a measurement on that accurately is to weigh your differential. That will tell you if you have the same amount of diff fluid as you did the last time. So if you really like the diff and you're just doing a rebuild for cleaning purposes and you don't want to change anything, you're going to be using the same fluid, but you might put in more or less than you did last time, and that's going to change the feel of the diff. So weigh your differential. These little scales, they're basically kitchen scales. They're highly accurate, and they're maybe $10 to $15 on Amazon, and they are invaluable. I use mine all the time for comparing things, and this is not the only kit that I have that recommends using this, and I think I'm going to kind of adopt this as a as my just standard method, that I'm always going to record the weight of fluid, in other words, the stat, and then I'm going to actually record the weight of the diff in my setup sheet. And that way I can either, I can use that to recreate the exact same setting, or if I'm trying to get a different result, I can not only change the weight, but I could change the volume. So anyway, I need to just take a moment. They do not give us This is, let's see. I just want to make sure I've got the fluids I need here, because they say use 5,000 CST for the differential, and I see 600 and 30,000. And wait a minute, those might be from my other kit, because I just built another kit. Yeah, my bad, I'm sorry. Another bag with almost identical looking containers. These are the fluids I used for my F1 car. So there's my shock fluid, 450. There's my diff fluid, and here is more hoodie diff grease. Actually, this is black graphite grease, and this is diff grease. So I'm getting a nice little collection of their fluids. So I've got everything I need. Let me throw down a towel. It's not like this really matters at the moment. It's getting all chopped up, and so this is something I've always done myself, and I'm really glad to see that at least some manufacturer recommends doing it. I always wondered why kits would have you put parts like this together where it's going to be metal on plastic and there's no bearing, and not put at least a small amount of grease on there just to reduce rolling resistance. Again, you don't want to wait for this fluid to eventually make its way down into all these parts. Better to put a little in there in advance. Okay. So now we need to do the same thing that I just did here in the diff case itself, and that can be a little tough, especially getting that pin in place. There is a notch, and I will show that to you in just a moment. Okay, it's going to be hard to see. I will try to get this at an angle where you can see it easily. We have 4 slots here, 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 here. Okay, one of them, there's a cutaway along the bottom rim that makes it possible for us to get a pin into place. And that's this one right here. So we need to get the hole lined up. And then we can slide that in nice and easy. Trying to get this centered up. That looks good. Okay. See, and these are pretty snug once you get them in place, so that's another reason it's nice to have some grease in there. It'll all loosen up in time, but better to have some lubrication in there in advance. Okay, so we're going to put one gear on each of the arms of the spider, and then we're going to follow that gear with one shim. We should put our first gear in here. Okay, make sure that it settles down. Okay, now just put a little drop right in the hole of each gear, if I can hang on to them, and slide them on, spin it a little bit. Now, remember, we're trying to get a specific level, which is basically to the top of the spider. And, you know, make sure you rotate the gears a few times and then let the lube settle again, because there's a lot of, you know, corners and divots, and the fluid's very thick, and you can get bubbles that'll be trapped under the gears. So rotating them once or twice and letting the lube settle again is a good practice. So 933, and that is below our maximum. They say that we should have between 3.9 and 9.4, and I've got 9.32. So that's fine. It's a little on the high side, but I'm fine with that. Able to be a little thicker, maybe a little stiffer, and again, I'm fine with that. So now we need a okay, just a second. We have this O-ring here. After disassembling the gear diff. Okay, that's just a note of warning about the this O-ring here. The O-ring goes inside the lip of this ring here. Let me try to show you what I'm talking about. It goes in here. Okay, and they say that after disassembling the gear diff, in other words, after you've used the car, and if you're trying to change fluid or rebuild, the large O-ring may have increased size and may be more difficult to reinstall. We recommend either inserting the old O-ring carefully in the diff cover or installing a new O-ring if the old one cannot be made to fit properly. So something to make note of and to keep an eye on. You know, there's definitely a reason why they are letting us know that. So had it just about perfect and then knocked it out. Okay, let me just see if they have any other interesting tidbits of info for us. Okay, note, orientation. There is a pin, which is right here, and we need to make sure that we line that up with this right here. And that's nice. That's going to help make sure that we get our holes all lined up. So they recommend that we put our paper gasket on here, and there is a like a left versus right. See, if I turn this a quarter turn, the holes don't, well, they do line up. Okay, so I was mistaken. It looked like, because some diffs will have like a rectangular pattern instead of a true square. Most of them, they're a square. I think it's probably easier to do the paper gasket in here. And then drop that on top. See, that's weird. That O-ring definitely makes lining this up a little tougher. Okay, the O-ring is in place. Paper gasket's in place. Got to be very careful with that. Okay, let's get our pin ready for orientation. We should just be able to pop that right on like that. Excellent. Okay. Now, use a wrench to make sure that you've got your gasket lined up, because you don't want to drag paper down into the threads. Is that the right wrench size there? Hang on. Doesn't feel like it. Yeah, these look like 1.5s. Okay. Now, I recommend getting all four at least started before you start tightening things down too much. That way you know that your gasket and your two pieces are aligned properly. And then we will tighten in a star-like pattern. Now, I also recommend doing that kind of in stages. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to tighten it down till it just touches down. Go to the one across from it on the opposite side of the axle. Tighten it the same, not hard tight, just snug. Okay, move over 90 degrees or to 3 o'clock, let's say, from 12. Snug that one, go across the axle to the last one. Okay, now this one we're going to tighten a little further. Go back across. Go 90. Go across again. Let's just kind of give them another Gentle once around. One of the nice things about working with an Xray is that you know that you've got really sturdy plastics. They use a lot of composite plastics. They've spent a lot of time, engineering effort, getting these plastics just right, getting the maximum amount of strength and stiffness without brittle. They are really nice. And you just don't get that with a lot of kits. A lot of kits, especially the Chinese stuff that is clones of other kits, not even good clones, a lot of them. The plastic is, you know, very soft. It's very easy to strip. You still want to be careful with these, and I still recommend the 2-finger method, but you've got a lot more safety margin. You can be a little more robust, shall we say. And that is a just marvelously smooth diff. It's perfect. It's exactly the kind of thing that you're looking for. Okay, so now we need to put together our front spool. Not exactly sure how this gets locked in place. There's no threads or anything. I wonder if they want us to glue it, or let's see. It just says slide it on. Does it clip on? Oh, kind of snaps on. Okay, so 2 out drives, 2 M3s. These aren't very heavy, but it is rotating mass, and considering the cost of this kit, I'm going to use all the titanium hardware I can. These are M310s, correct? Okay, so bearings. Let's see, do they give us a bag number for these? Not that I see. Okay. Ah, here we go. That's it's 0.9, bag 0.9. So we sure have a lot of bearings with this kit. And they suggest putting in some hoodie bearing oil. I am going to go ahead and just set these down for a minute, and I'm going to put in some I've been using this for a while. It's by Perpetual Motion, super light qualifying ball bearing oil. And you see it just drops right in past those seals. Now there should be some grease in these already, but there may not be. So I'm going to go ahead and let them drink up about as much as they'll take without it running out the other end. Okay. Wow, those feel really nice. That's why I'm not like going with ceramics with this kit. Hoodie just provides very high quality stuff right from the get-go. They make a ceramic kit, but I'm not sure it's you know, worth it when you consider the quality of the bearings that they're already giving you. It may not make as much a difference. Some kits it might, some it might not. Now, this is an interesting tool. I've considered purchasing this. I just saw it a few minutes ago online. It's a Hoodie Professional Bulkhead Alignment Tool, 17 millimeter. And basically it's an aluminum block. It's very precisely cut and measured. And it has these steel pins. You loosen the screws that, these are your axle retainers here. And this pair here. When the car is mostly assembled, you've got your top deck on, you pull your diff and your spool out, you put this block in place, you put in your pins, and then you retighten the retaining screws. And that makes sure that those bulkheads are properly aligned to each other, and everything is square and true with the chassis. It's kind of like one of the tools for getting rid of tweak on older cars. So anyway, again, something I'm considering. They also say they have a high performance belt, drive belt, low friction. How much difference that is, I couldn't possibly say. It might be something to get one sometime and kind of compare it, like you know, do a top speed run, see how fast the car goes, do a couple of laps and time the laps, and then swap out for the belt, and then, you know, do a speed run and then the same number of laps again with the different belt, and compare those two different types of times and see if there is actually a benefit. But that's expensive testing when you're buying things to see if they actually work for you. So, and there are, like I said, tons of option items. We've got these different bearing holders. We've got a fixed pulley for the front. I'm not exactly sure where they're going. Let's see. I assume that replaces this inner pulley here. Again, for the type of racing that this car is being set up for, you know, it's not super fast and it's not super high torque, so I don't think it's an issue. I'm gonna go ahead and pause for just a moment and prepare my next bag and such and get ready. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.